So it's finally time to get back to some actual Overwatch. Yes, Overwatch gameplay, not just transfers. Yes, we have seen some of the Overwatch League teams in action in the Next Cup, or the NetEase Esports X tournament, or the Next Cup in other words, that takes place in China. Now this actually takes place in China every year. That used to be done on a spring, summer, winter basis, and it used to be for the contenders teams generally. So the last one was the 2020 Winter NetEase Esports X Tournament, or Next Cup, and it was Runaway and World GameStar Phoenix, Team CC, Team Chaser, the new academy team of the Chengdu Hunters. But this time is a little bit different. They did the Nexus, which is going to be made up of 4 teams. This is the Guangzhou Charge, Shanghai Dragons, Seoul Dynasty, and Dallas Fuel. So this is obviously the next tier up. This is the Overwatch League, and this is our first look at some of these teams for the 2021 year anyway, and some of their new parts, new looks. You know, Seoul with Sabi Olby now, Animo, 2U in full time. Then we have the Guangzhou Charge, who've now got Mike Cayley. They have Trisol 1. They have Jihan now as well. Kariv and Mandu, their new support line. Shanghai Dragons with Erster. And Fate now as their main tank. And Molly in as well as their support. And then Dallas Fuel. I mean, what isn't new about Dallas Fuel apart from Doha? Like, you got Sparkle, Exy, Fearless, Hanvin, Jexer, Fielder, and Repel. All of these guys. And we get to see how these guys shape up against each other in these very, very, very early stages, and that's something we have to take into account. These are extremely early stages. This is still January. The Overwatch League does not start until April. Some of these teams have only been together for a matter of weeks, and some may change. Who knows? But there's a lot of building time ahead of the 2021 Overwatch League season, so don't take these results with a pinch of salt, but it is a very early indication of where these teams are at, and it's a very interesting one. Now, we're going to go over week 1. So this is day 1 and 2. Next weekend, we're going to see another day's worth of fixtures, and then we're going to see the finals. So this is not the complete next tournament all over and done with, but this is the early stages of it, and some very interesting matchups. So first of all, we had Shanghai versus Dallas. Now, obviously Shanghai are fairly stable from what they were last year. New main tank and all that is going to be a little bit weird, but still the core of Lip and Fletter, Void, Li Gon, Izayaki. There's a lot of what we saw from Shanghai last season still there, whereas this Dallas Fuel squad is completely different to what we saw from the Fuel last year. You know, we're seeing most of the Paris Eternal talent, or the Korean Paris Eternal talent, and then we're seeing Jexer put in with that, with Rappel, and then obviously Fearless coming in from the Shanghai Dragons, and it'll be very interesting to see how all this all shapes up. So, the question is, how did it go? Well, as you might expect from Asia, they had their little own take on the current meta. Now, the current meta is Bull, Diva, Dive, with an Echo and a Tracer generally if you're in America. But in the Asian region, they decide they want to swap out the Tracer for more of a Sombra. So that's not unheard of. The Asian region has a very large favouring to Sombra a lot of the time. So it's not too surprising that Shanghai Dragons have gone down this route. And they kind of stuck to that pretty much the whole time. And then Dallas Fuel, they had other ideas. They decided to go Tracer Sombra, a little bit Tracer Echo, throwing some McCree in there. They were changing up their comp quite a bit. And I don't know if it really worked. At times the Dallas Fuel looked lost. This ends up as a 3-0 for the Shanghai Dragons. I don't think it's too much of a surprise. Shanghai looked really good, as we would expect. Actually, possibly better than we expected. Fate looks like he's got a really good wrecking ball. And he really didn't look out of place in the Shanghai squad. They dominated pretty much. Well, they dominated Volskaya. The other two maps were closer, but definitely Shanghai had that clutch factor, and they had that little bit more quality than the Dallas Fuel on the day. Fearless, again, the ball is not amazing. Dallas, this is really not their meta. Really, really not their meta. They really, really weren't playing Echo, which is a worry, considering even though Echo's expect to be probably quite heavily nerfed before the Overwatch League season, not just finished with the nerfs that she's got now. You would want an Echo player, because Echo is extremely strong right now. So you're expecting to have an Echo player, and with Dallas not having that ability to play the Echo, they literally didn't want to play the Echo at all, it's worrying. Fletter had a field day on the Echo. He really, really did. And yeah, and Lips, Sombra, still good. Not top tier when we compare him in another match we're going to see, but, well, he is top tier, but not top of the tier maybe. But very interesting stuff. Like, very, very, very interesting stuff. And it's early days for Dallas, but they did look lost at times. It's a lot of coaching, I think, is going to be needed for them to really gel properly. I know it seems silly saying that, considering it's a lot of the Paris Eternal squad that's coming through, but there was no fielder. It was Jackson Rappel. So those guys are going to have a little bit of time getting back used to playing with some of the players that they played with a couple of years ago. Same with Fearless. So it was a bit of a mishmash, and we didn't see fielder at all, which is slightly disappointing in some respects, I think. But yeah, odd. Work to do for Dallas, but Shanghai definitely on course. And it was an impressive display from the Dragons, if I'm all honest. Then we have a really super interesting match. There was a lot more in this match than there was in the Shanghai Dallas match. This was Seoul versus Guangzhou Charge. So, Seoul Dynasty were the runners-up last year, and they made changes coming into this 2021 season, or nearly the 2021 season. We're signing 2U down permanently, the new main support Animo, and then bringing in Sabi Olby as well. It's a little bit of NYXL stuffed into this Seoul Dynasty side that we saw with Profits and Gesture and Marvel last year alongside Creative. No more Toby. But I'm telling you what, they did not look lost without him, which is very, very good. And I think this is a big key for the Animo pickup. Not necessarily mechanics for Animo, but his leadership. He was in-game leader for the NYXL when he came in, and it shows. This Seoul Dynasty side were good. I don't think anyone can argue with that. There is one weird thing that Seoul did throughout this entirety of this weekend, which is really weird to me. And this was, every time map 2, they would sub Profit out, and they would play Fitz and Sabiobi. And that is the map they lost. In both of their games they played this weekend, is map 2, every time they did not play Profit. Doesn't that tell you something? Profit is a very key player to this Seoul Dynasty side, and I do not think he should be out of the squad. One worrying thing for Sabiobi is that Profit looks better on the Tracer than Sabiobi does. So, yeah, that's a little bit worrying if you're a Sabiobi. And maybe he'll be relying on a few other picks, because I really don't think Sabiobi is going to be starting in the Seoul Dynasty side right now. Unless it becomes more of a Tracer Echo, I could see Sabiobi playing, and then putting Fitz away, but they played Fitz the entirety of this weekend, which is an interesting one, I'm not going to lie. But this does end up as a 3-1 for the Seoul Dynasty, and it is much closer than perhaps what you would have expected. I did look at the Guangzhou Charge and think they were quite good. Kariv impressed on the Ana, especially on the map in which the Guangzhou Charge won, which was Temple of Anubis, where Rio came in and played the Winston. And basically, Kariv pocketed the ever-living beep out of Rio, and it worked. Farming Nano, etc. And, well, I liked the Guangzhou Charge. Yes, they lost, but they are better than I expected. They are much better than I expected. And I think this is promising for the APAC region. I think this means that the APAC region is going to be even more competitive than we perhaps expected, which is going to be incredible. Like, this region is going to have a lot of talent. Also worth mentioning that I think even Krong has improved on his off picks. Like, we know that Krong has a fantastic Zarya, but I also liked the Diva he ran as well, alongside the Sigma. The Sigma is what he was known for, but the Zarya and the Diva that he ran was also very good. So I think Krong is actually getting better, which is only good for the Guangzhou Charge. And when the Guangzhou Charge ran Jihan, which is obviously a lot of ball was being played at the moment, Jihan didn't look out of place either. May not have been absolutely fantastic, but it's serviceable, definitely serviceable, and promising for the Charge. Definitely promising. There is still this weird thing of Seoul mixing up the Marvel and the Jester, and sometimes. But one thing they do seem to be very adamant to stick to right now is 2U, and I think that is really good, if I'm honest. Like, 2U's been fantastic this weekend for the Seoul Dynasty. He really, really has. But now we move on to the next day of fixtures, where we saw the Dallas Fuel in action again, and this time they would take on that Guangzhou Charge side. And once again, the Fuel would get swept 3-0. Now, that is something I would not have expected coming into this. I thought the Guangzhou Charge would be the weakest side in this competition. They are not. Far from it. Dallas Fuel are that side. And that's disappointing. That's really disappointing from a Fuel point of view to get swept 3-0 by Guangzhou Charge. And there seems to be this weird thing of they get the pick and then they don't seem to be able to win the fight. It's so weird with Dallas, and that seems like, to me, a synergy coaching issue. And I think Dallas might weed some of that out in the longer term. We have to remember that they'll actually take on none of these opponents in the regular season matches or the build-up matches to the mid-season tournaments because, well, they won't be in the APAC region, they'll be in NA. So it's a different ball game when it comes to that. But this is still not a great showing from Dallas so far. Next week, they take on the Seoul Dynasty. And yeah, that's not going to go too well, I'm sure. And I don't think the Dallas Fuel can make the finals now anyway, as far as I know. So that's rough on the Fuel. But I expected them to do better. They have not picked up a map this weekend. That's really disappointing from the Fuel. Really disappointing. But the last match of this weekend was an absolutely amazing match. This was Shanghai Dragons taking on the Seoul Dynasty. So second in the grand finals versus the top of APAC of last year. It's always going to be a massive match, and it was throughout the 2020 season when we saw it. So we always knew we were in store for some great Overwatch. As ever, Prophet and Fletter are on point with their echo play, etc. We never have to really argue with that. We always know they're going to be pretty decent. It's never something we have to really bring into question. And the tanks for both teams, again, darn good. The supports, again, pretty darn good. Izzyaki, I think, had a few iffy moments, but it wasn't too atrocious. Now, when it comes to differences I saw between the two teams, it's actually all the Sombras. We saw Fletter and Lip up against each other. Not Fletter. Fitz and Lip against each other. And I tell you what, Fitz tended to outdo Lip at times, which is very, very interesting. Whether the pressure got to Lip, I don't know. But Seoul Dynasty ran out 3-1 winners over the Shanghai Dragons. And again, the only map they dropped was the map in which they didn't play Prophet. So, Seoul looking strong. Seoul looking darn strong, especially when Prophet is in the lineup. So, a lot to be garnered from this weekend. A lot to be garnered. And Shanghai, again, they look good with Fate in the lineup. So, the weakness has not been... It's not completely, should we say, hope-shattering that Fearless is no longer with the Shanghai Dragons. They have completely settled in with Fate. It's looking pretty good. Yes, they did lose to Seoul Dynasty, but that's not too of a major hiccup. There's not too much of a major hiccup. Seoul Dynasty and Shanghai Dragons, they had a big rivalry last season that went to and fro, so it's not too bad. The big worry for one of these teams is Dallas. Like, Dallas just getting complete 0-6th. It's not great. Big promise for Guangzhou Charge, though. Big promise. It will be very interesting to see the Guangzhou Charge go up against Shanghai Dragons on January the 30th. Very, very interesting, because I want to see exactly how they size up against each other. Seoul Dynasty versus Dallas Fuel, I'm expecting that to be a heavy role for Seoul. It'll be interesting to see if the Fitz Sabiolbi comes back out on the map too, and if it does, can they actually win a map with that Fitz Sabiolbi lineup with no Prophet in there? It'll be very interesting to see if that can happen against what seems to be the weakest team in this competition right now. And then in the finals, it'll be Seoul Dynasty versus someone most likely, either Guangzhou Charge or Shanghai Dragons, the winner of that match. And again, the winner takes home the next cup. So yeah, it's been a super duper interesting and enlightening weekend at this next cup. And it's going to be, I hope we see more of these going through until the start of the season, because it is really interesting to garner a little bit of an idea of how these teams are exactly shaping up against each other. And it's been very eye-opening, especially for the Guangzhou Charge and the Dallas Fuel during this tournament. But it is early days, so we have to take it with a tiny bit of pinch of salt. And then, obviously, there's a lot of work they can do before the start of the season to improve things. So don't get too upset right now, Dallas Fuel fans. And then remember, they will be in North America, not the Asia region, when it comes to the start of the season. And that is a different ball game altogether when you're going up against the likes of, I was going to say LA Valiant, and that was a very bad pick. When you're going up against the likes of Paris Eternal and Washington, that would be a close match, I would hope. Then the likes of Florida and people like that, it would make it very much more interesting for Dallas, and I'm sure they will improve with time. Guangzhou Charge, though, very promising. Anyway, I will leave it here for this one. All the socials are linked in the video description below. It was the channel's birthday yesterday. Happy 4 years. And everything's linked in the video description as per usual, with the illusion stuff and my own socials. And I will sign off here. So thank you guys so much for this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.